Hey everyone, it is the sick version of me and my voice is slightly recovered from the last video. I wasn't planning on doing a video today, but we do have brand new information about Castle in 2025 that I think is really important to talk about. I'm really excited to do so because these Lego leaks just keep on coming, and it's important to note that we are probably very close to when some of these sets are going to be revealed. So there's this new information that I want to share with you and talk a little bit about the implications for what it can mean in the future. So let's go ahead and dive in. The first thing I want to talk about is what I got wrong from the last video. The last video where we talked about castle rumors, I talked about the new medieval castle from Creator 3-in-1 that included a faction called the Horse Lords. Now, I thought this might be something like Rohan, where you've got this gold and dark green, but instead it is actually a blue and white with gold trim, at least on the shield. Now that's really intriguing because you can see an image of this if you look. I'm not going to show you any images because I don't want to violate any sort of copyright, but there are some images available that you can see what this shield looks like, and it looks very much like the CMF Paladin from last year. And I think it's incredible the way that it looks, and I'm excited for what it has to show. The other faction is the Snake faction, which is black and yellow, and we talked about that last time. But what is interesting is that the Snake faction, the shield is the Hylian shield, like what we saw with the Zelda set from last year. So they gave us a new mold. In that set, they are bringing it back into circulation this year to give us a new shield design, and I think that is incredible news for Lego Castle fans. We'll unpack more of that in just a little bit. Now, there are some additional updates that bear relevance to what we talked about last time, namely the castle itself. I said that it would look something like what we have on the box from the Medieval Dragon. That is certainly the case, but you'll notice on the box, in that image, there is a little bit of light yellow, and so the rumors that I am seeing floating about do suggest that there are going to be some light yellow highlights on that top section. Now, from what I have seen of the actual castle, it is, and just a small segment of it, a brick-built castle, although there are some corner panels. So it's almost like a hybrid between the yellow castle from 1978, which was entirely brick-built, and something like the Black Falcon's Fortress, which had those corner panels on the corners of the castle. So it uses those pieces as well as brick-built walls. Now, you'll also recognize this from some of the 1980s era castles in that there are inverted slopes that protrude from the walls to set up the width of and depth of the battlements. So that's a very, very interesting observation that Lego is really embracing some of those old styles, and I think it bears well for the castle fans as we get more details about this, and it looks very similar to what we think about the pinnacle peak years of Lego Castle. The castle is also primarily light blade, but Lego is trying to avoid what we call the big gray wall syndrome, and by using some dark blade elements as well as sand green, they are able to do that. They also have various colors of plates on the base, some blue for water, some green for grass and land, which I think is perfectly normal, and I think sets up for the secondary and tertiary builds, which are apparently going to be a marketplace and a joust. So let's talk a little bit about the minifigs in these sets because it's really important. And I haven't seen the whole castle, but I have seen a couple of minifigs. The first one is the civilian. Now, from what I can tell from a blurry picture, this is a brand new mold. It's almost like there's a leather vest or something like that that the minifig is wearing. So it is not a reuse of the minifigs or any of the minifigs we saw from the medieval town square in 2024. Some people were hypothesizing that that might be the case. In terms of the knights, I've only seen the side of the knights from both the Horse Lord and the Snake Knight factions, but the Horse Lord has a light blade torso, dark blade arms, and I haven't seen the actual printing on the knight itself, but I can't, or the helmet or head for any of that, but I have seen, again, the shield and the rest of that, and the Snake Knight is black and has the shield, the Hylian shield that we talked about earlier. So those are very intriguing. We are supposed to get 4 of the Horse Lord minifigs and 1 of the Snake Knights and the 1 civilian. So that's a total of 6 minifigs, which is very interesting for a Creator 3-in-1. What's also interesting is that the horses that they come with, they are brick built. These are not going to be the pre-molded horse pieces that we've seen in the past. They are brick built, and I think largely because it is a Creator 3-in-1, but not just because it's Creator 3-in-1, they want to give us the minifig scale animals that are brick built, but because I think those pieces are going to be used for the other models. So I think it makes sense from that standpoint that we get the brick built creatures. I know a lot of people wanted the pre-molded horse pieces in this set. Unfortunately, that is not going to be the case, but let's hope that there are more sets coming out later that do give us that. But there is more that's relevant to talk about with the Creator 3-in-1 sets as it pertains to Castle in 2025. The first one is a unicorn castle set, which is going to retail for $40 US, and it's going to have about 370 pieces. Now, I haven't seen much of this. What I have seen, though, is a pink unicorn / Pegasus type piece. I don't really think it's something I'm interested in, but in case you are, you can check that one out. More importantly, though, is the Creator 3-in-1 Haunted House. This could be a really interesting set. Now, it is going to retail for $90, and it's about 740 pieces. So it's not a great price to piece ratio for Creator. So where do we get the $90 from? Where do we see that increase in value? Well, I think some of it comes from the minifigs. There's a printed werewolf torso and a werewolf head on one minifig. There's a Frankenstein minifig, a skeleton, but more importantly for Castle fans, we are getting the return of the Ghost minifig. That's right, we are getting a brand new Ghost. Now, this looks like it's going to be similar to the glow-in-the-dark mold that we saw from the 1990s, rather than the non-glow-in-the-dark molds that we saw with the keychain from 2018, or maybe the 2015 version. But it has been a while, about 10 years, since we've seen that minifig version. We are getting a potentially glow-in-the-dark minifig that's a Ghost in this set, which is absolutely incredible. The Ghost facial expression is actually going to be a little bit more different from the original glow-in-the-dark one, which has a smile. This one's looks like it has a little bit of a half-open expression on it. So a little bit different from what we had back in the 1990s, but still great news for LEGO Castle fans, especially if we get something along the lines of a glow-in-the-dark Ghost. So what are the implications of these rumors? Well, I think the first one is that we just get more and more information that this Creator 3-in-1 Castle is going to be potentially on par with the one from 2021. I think it's going to be something that a lot of LEGO fans are going to be interested in, not only for the pieces, but absolutely the minifigs. That Paladin-style Knight shield is going to be incredible. The Hylian shield is going to be very cool to get our hands on, and getting 4 of those Horse Lords in the set is going to be fantastic. But it's going to be something that a lot of LEGO fans are going to look at getting multiple copies of, just like they did with the one from 2021. So lots of really good pieces. I think a more traditional castle color, and it sets up pretty well for being on the shelves for 3 years and selling really well. Now, a second implication is that it's good to see that LEGO's taking castle-relevant molds from other themes and giving us new pieces or new prints for those. The Hylian shield is a big example of that, where we are getting that now in our castle sets for this year, which means that it could be coming in additional sets as we move forward. A third thing to think about is that we might be seeing an interesting precursor to an Icons 2026 castle set. Now, roll with me on this one. In 2022, we had the Lion Knights castle. Huge set. Icons really established the way that castle is built and looks like in the modern LEGO era. In 2024, we get more of a civilian side set with the medieval town square. Nothing in 2023, nothing in 2025 in Icons, but in 2026, we might get to see another one if this pattern continues. And what we could hopefully see is something that brings these new factions together in some way, shape, or form. Whether it is a Snake Knights castle or whether it's a castle for the Horse Lords, whatever that would be, I would anticipate us getting horses, barding, different style of shields, and more minifigs. So something like the Lion Knights castle, even if it's in the high price point, would be really cool to see more of those minifigs. So that's one possibility. Of course, as I mentioned last time, is the possibility of getting some of these torsos and shields on Pick and Build Online, or the Build a Minifig station at your local Lego store. Now, the last implication that I think this has is that 2025 really is going to be a great year for Lego Castle fans. In as much as we don't have a theme, the evidence keeps suggesting, as more and more comes out, that this is going to be a year that we're going to see a lot of great medieval and castle options for all price points, whether it's the $60 Dragon for Creator 3-in-1, a $40 Unicorn Castle, the $120 new Horse Knights Castle, and other sets. So there's a lot going on here. Should be able to fit into anyone and everyone's budget, which only is a good thing for Lego Castle fans. And if these sets do hit, maybe we will see a theme come out in the next couple of years, or at least more castle options, which is what all we can hope for. All right, comment down below what you're hoping to see with some of these sets. Let me know if my voice sounded too weird in this video. I apologize, but I just had to make this video. Thanks for watching, and always remember to keep building together.